global ban on a controversial pesticide is dividing the nation of India. For over 40 years now, farmers here have used Endosulfan as a means to protect the agricultural produce from pests. But activists say the chemical causes a lot of health deformities. I'm Fauzia Ibrahim. On this edition of 101 East, we ask if the Indian government can balance the needs of its farmers along with the health and safety of its people.
All the houses, they had got lot of problems. In some houses, there may be 4 or 5 patients. That was what made me wondering what is happening here.
For almost 30 years, Dr. Mohan Kumar has been paying house visits to patients in Kasaragod in southern India.
As I started my practice and the days passed, and as I became familiar with the patients and their homes, I saw that there are many chronically affected patients with neurological problems, bedridden, and all in a similar age group. That was a peculiar thing.
Sheila Vati was 6 years old when she lost the use of all her arms and legs.
On the way back home, that day, that was a endosulfan spray day. Helicopter was spraying over her head. She suddenly fell down, unconscious. When she regained consciousness after 4 or 5 days, maybe, in the hospital in Kasaragod, she had lost all 4 limbs.
In India's southern state of Kerala, Endosulfan, a generic pesticide, has been linked to the deaths of hundreds of people and illnesses of thousands more. Dr. Kumar believes aerial spraying of the pesticide was behind the spike of illnesses in these villages.
During the months of December, January and February, 3 times every year, they have been spraying endosulfan using helicopters. That has been going on since 1976. Moreover, they were not following any guidelines or regulations. We can imagine spraying from about 50 meters high and the wind velocity carrying the poison everywhere, nearly 10 kilometers away from this place. The majority of the poison is absorbed through the skin itself. The result is that neurological diseases like congenital abnormalities, being born handicapped, then mental retardation and other things.
Kasaragod in northern Kerala is one of the worst affected areas. It's hilly and densely populated and crisscrossed by rivers. People living in villages close to water were some of the first to get sick. Tahira's son has encephalitis, or swelling of the brain. He is now 13 years old.
When he was 3 months old, pus started coming out of his ears and his forehead started swelling. I went to the doctor and they told me about this disease. They thought it was caused by endosulfan and they suggested I move away or else any future children of mine could also be affected.
Doctors and activists in Kasaragod and Karnataka got actively involved in spreading awareness about the dangers of endosulfan.
The sprayed endosulfan falls into these rivers and contaminates the water. It also goes into the ground. The communities here bore wells and use this water for bathing, drinking, cooking. The whole food chain is affected.
They eat fishes from the water. They eat chicken from their premises. Or frogs, frogs.
The frogs in the area eat plants that are sprayed with endosulfan and die. The chicken feed on these dead frogs and become sick, and then are slaughtered by the people and consumed.
All around the state, doctors started raising the alarm.
So I thought something is related to the water itself. So in '96, I had written an article in the Kerala Medical Journal itself, saying that water is contaminated with something, some chemical may be causing all these problems. But at that time, nobody took nobody gave attention.
But Tahira listened to her doctor's advice and moved away. Her other children were born without complications. But looking after Budusha hasn't been easy.
It is very hard to lift him, and he is not able to sit. So wherever I go, I must carry him. It gets very tiring as he is so heavy.
Endosulfan was introduced to India as part of the country's Green Revolution, when farmers were persuaded to switch from traditional to Western farming methods to fight famine.
Endosulfan was used by Indian farmers since 1960s. In those days, the European company used to market it, and over a period of last 40 years, it has become virtually a household name.
Over the following decades, Endosulfan, along with other chemical pesticides, fertilizers and high-yield seeds, transformed India from a nation desperate for food into the world's top cotton producer and grain exporter.
Indian horticulture produce has increased over 60 to 70% or more than that in the last 20 years. We produce 100 million tons of fruits and vegetables.
But some believe the cost to human health and the environment was too high.
We are seeing with our own eyes the misery of these children.
Kerala's Chief Minister, Oommen Chandy, stopped the aerial spraying of cashew nut estates in the year 2000.
The estate belongs to the state government. So my feeling is that the government has no right to escape from this thing. The responsibility lies with the government because the government-owned company did it. We want to ban it not only in our state, throughout the country. But the farmers are for it. So then in a democratic setup, the government of India, they are in a fix.
The state government of Kerala finally banned Endosulfan in 2006, but recent tests on local rivers and dams show that trace elements of the pesticides still linger.
Endosulfan is a persistent organic pollutant. It's an organochlorine poison. Once it is sprayed over the soil, when it is contaminated and reaches the water bodies and other things, it stays there for almost all lifetime.
Families of Endosulfan victims have received support from their communities, but are still waiting for government help.
The Human Rights Commission in Delhi directed the state government to pay 5 lakhs rupees to each family of the victim. That will be a big amount. So we have approached central government to give us substantial help.
Over the past few years, Endosulfan has been banned or phased out in more than 80 countries, including the United States, Australia and parts of West Africa. But a worldwide ban was only made official earlier this year at the Stockholm Convention.
I'm glad that it's banned. If you have a baby like this, you don't even have time to sleep. So I'm very relieved that other mothers won't have to suffer like this.
But many in India oppose the ban, including farmers from the rich agricultural state of Andhra Pradesh in central India.
I've been using it for around 20 years. Every time I farm, the harvest only comes right when I use Endosulfan. It kills the pests, and there are no side effects. Now that it's banned, it's causing difficulties for me. I have to buy it illegally.
Endosulfan is known as the poor man's pesticide because it's about 10 times cheaper than any equivalent.
They banned it, saying that it causes itchiness and will burn and make our skin peel off. But nothing like that ever happens. Because it's cheaper, it means we can use it more often when there are more insects. Sometimes we can use it twice or even 3 times. But with the other products, we can only spray once. So Endosulfan is much more useful to us.
I personally feel that Supreme Court has overreacted. Indian Supreme Court has overreacted without realizing the practical problems of the farmers.
Before the ban, India used to supply about 70% of the world's demand for endosulfan. The local pesticide industry and many of the farmers here say they believe the ban may have been more inspired by monetary motives than it was by health and environmental concerns. Some even say the European agri-chemical companies want to replace the cheap generic endosulfan with a more expensive trademarked alternative.
I think it's basically a business interest. This businessmen mischief, I call it. You see, they have their own vested interest. Instead of directly telling people, the best way is this. Say that it is harmful, it causes environment degradation, environment problem, then everybody gets scared and our stupid governments will stop it.
Farmer Kela Vemkat is down to his last bottle of endosulfan. He's not sure what he'll do next season, as there's no viable alternative on the market, and he doesn't want to break the law.
My only option is to use two pesticides, one to kill the small insects and one for the larger insects. To buy both these pesticides, it costs even more. That's a problem for us. We would like endosulfan to be allowed back.
Like many farmers, Kela Vemkat is aware of the controversy surrounding endosulfan, but says he hasn't seen any bad side effects from using the pesticide.
Nothing like that's happened over here. We can't tell for sure about other places. It might have happened because of some companies producing bad quality endosulfan. Here we only deal with regular suppliers, so we have not faced such problems and we've seen no side effects.
Farmers and pesticide manufacturers from across India's agricultural states are questioning the validity of scientific reports that link endosulfan to health problems.
Is it endosulfan at all? I have serious doubts. It is for government to go into and do the research, not for me. But in our states, in our villages, throughout the rest of India, it has not caused any problem. Therefore, I welcome endosulfan. I want it to be continued.
Even the government of Kerala, who pushed so hard for the ban, can't account for why the problems in Kasaragod and Karnataka haven't been repeated elsewhere.
In that question, I have also no answer. I am also so many times think about it. When we see these victims, I am convinced that this is because of this. But when we face this question, so I cannot give a credible answer. That's a real problem.
Recent studies by the Indian Council for Medical Research suggest genetic links rather than endosulfan may be the root cause of the region's illnesses, but the research is ongoing. Despite this, Dr. Kumar believes the ban in Kerala is having a positive effect.
I am very happy to say that after this 11th year, for the last 4 or 5 years, the new cases of physically handicapped being born, the rate has come down. Miscarriages in ladies, that rate has come down drastically.
And he's confident that the mistakes of the past won't be repeated.
Our people won't allow endosulfan to come back for the sake of our next generation.
That report by Kathy Hearn. For more on how endosulfan is affecting India's farming communities, we have come to the state of Kerala. And joining us on the discussion panel are Dr. S.K. Raza, the Director of India's Institute of Pesticide Formulation Technology. And Jayakumar Chelaton is the Director of Tanal, a local NGO opposed to the use of endosulfan. Thank you so much for joining us today. Jayakumar, if I could start with you. Endosulfan has been in use for over 50 years now, but why is it that there is a growing call for it to be banned now?
In Kasaragod, actually the first time it was used was in 1976, and the first community response came out in 1979. And in fact, more than the community response, there was the article written by one of the farm journalists saying that life is cheaper than cashew. And that got published in English, Kannada and Malayalam in 79, and right from 79 onwards, there are local people saying that ban endosulfan.
Dr. Raza, for over 30 years now, people have been campaigning for this pesticide to be banned. But why do you think that there is a growing call only now? Why has it been developing now?
The problems are localized to Kerala only. Even today, there is no complaint from other parts of the country, while it is the most used insecticide in the country, not only in India, but a lot of other countries are also using, including China. So there is no report except from Kerala. So now since the problems are being faced, so the voice is being raised. But then we have to look, what is the real voice? Is it the real voice, or there is something else going on?
What is the something else that you're inferring to?
Something else means, you cannot name even a single chemical on the earth which is non-toxic, which doesn't have a toxic effect. Even take a pinch of salt, which is very much required for food, that is also toxic, okay? So all insecticide or herbicides or pesticides as a whole, they are all toxic in nature. There is no doubt about it. But then it depends on the way of use, it depends on the dosage, it depends on the environmental conditions, it depends on many factors when you do the experiment in the laboratory. So what I suspect is that perhaps no work has been done on the inhalation, because all farmers are using Endosulfan or any other pesticide just on the ground. While in Kerala, the case is different. It is being used as an aerial spray. And there perhaps it is going through inhalation.
Yeah. I would like to come in precisely there, because
one say that only Kerala has this problem.
Dr. Rasa is totally wrong when he says that it's only in Kerala, because already there are more than 175 publications from India which says there are problems of contamination in Haryana, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra. The first paper on
contamination is different. No, I'm saying it is toxic. It has to contaminate.
You are
contaminating soil. It is contaminating water.
It is health contamination for health. Actually, in 1983, the first report on Endosulfan came from Maharashtra, which says that the women workers in the cotton plantation or cotton areas are getting contaminated with Endosulfan with residues in blood.
Jayakumar, is there a possibility that perhaps it is the way this pesticide is being used, the way this chemical perhaps is being mishandled in some way?
I think that is totally wrong when you say that it's mishandling. Like the government of India has given permission up to 1992 to use Endosulfan by aerial spraying. And this is not just along the only issue of Endosulfan. What separates Kasaragod is probably a chemical accident where Endosulfan has been continually used for more than 23 years. And I have seen similar or worse problems in tea estates. I have seen more or less the same scenarios in cotton plantation sector, in cardamom estates. But the problem there is you can't pinpoint to one pesticide, because there are something like if I go to the tea estates in Assam, in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, there are something like 16 or 17 pesticides which can cause the same or similar hazards. So it is very difficult for you to pinpoint to one non-Endosulfan. But in Kasaragod, what happened?
You are supporting my thing.
I'm not supporting.
All pesticides are toxic.
Yes. I totally agree. I totally agree that all pesticides are toxic.
Yeah, so ban all pesticides. And
precisely.
then you will lose food security.
No,
sir. No food security.
Is that what you're trying to push?
The cultivation.
I just want Dr. Rasa to understand what is the new thinking in the world.
Are you against chemical pesticides?
I'm definitely against chemical pesticides which are hazardous. Like even one molecule of Endosulfan, if you expose a mother with a carrying child, that is a timing. That becomes very crucial, because it can cause much more harm than a 70-year-old very healthy adult male. And we found that once you do the first 3 years of spraying, after that, every day the people are exposed. Like it binds to soil. Like every chemical has different properties which makes it more.
So again, are we going back to the possible cause for the deformities, for the health problems, is the fact of the way it is being used?
I'll totally take that argument from a very different perspective. If you look at the tea plantations, if you look at the cardamom plantations, if you look at the cotton plantations, the hazard or harm is only in the sprayers or the workers who spray, and also the few people who stay in the downstreams on the stream side. It doesn't exonerate Endosulfan, because it is a hazardous substance. It can cause, it is a neurotoxin, it is endocrine disruptor, it is a suspected carcinogen, and there is a whole lot of things. But if you look at exactly to this issue in Kasaragod, in 1992, Dr. Banerjee said it needs to be banned in India in all water proximity areas. He went ahead and said reservoirs, wells and ponds, and if that decision was implemented in 1992 by Government of India, in Kasaragod today we have something like 10,000 victims identified by the local panchayats. That 10,000 could have come down to something like 1,000, 1,200.
So you're saying that there actually isn't an actual link?
Yes.
No, because there are so many factors. That's what I'm telling you. One thing is the usage process. That's what I'm telling, that it is not, no health problems have been reported from other parts of the country where it is being used as insecticide for cereals, insecticide for vegetables. It is the most commonly used and most frequently used pesticide for vegetables, for cereals, but no such reports have been established or published or come into the picture so far, as far as I know.
I can totally agree with you on that reports may not have come to you. But if you look at in India, right from 1983 onwards, there are scientific publications which talks about human contamination and health issues. And secondly, when you look at Endosulfan, where the series of problems are there, there are 9 countries in Africa, with Benin leading the lot. They went ahead and filed a report in the PIC Secretary in Rotterdam Convention and said they want to ban Endosulfan. There is health problems from across the country. And the serious attack on Endosulfan came from the consumers in Europe in 2003, when they found that Finland and Denmark, which was not, these are 2 countries in the close to the Arctic.
In European Union even, there is not much to talk about the health problems.
But the European Union and America has banned the use of this pesticide.
They have new molecules and they want to introduce those molecules.
You're just playing it down.
Are you suggesting that perhaps the EU and the Americans want to introduce their own pesticide?
Exactly. That is the situation.
It smacks of a conspiracy theory, doesn't it?
No, but I think you need to to understand another thing also. Endosulfan was formulated by the Europeans, patented by the Americans, and India didn't discover anything. Whereas in India, we have a lot of plant protection methods.
Today India is the largest exporter, largest producer of Endosulfan.
Because all others banned.
And China.
Because all others banned.
No, all others are banned. Banning has been done recently, not long.
What is the reason?
But for the last, since 1980s, India is the largest producer,
no, sir.
largest
India
exporter
became
of
the largest producer only in 2001.
No.
Until that, India was not a largest producer. And basically, we became the largest because when others started stopping it.
While the ban is in place, the Supreme Court has said that this ban must be implemented, but a committee has just come up and approved the export of Endosulfan from India to the rest of the world. Isn't this double standards?
It's not the double standard. When you get some problem, a lot of hue and cries are made, and then of course some action has to be taken. So again, Supreme Court has banned, but the government has not agreed to it.
So what will happen if this ban takes place?
The farmers will suffer. The food security will be lost. What he is referring to, there are some crops which you can grow without pesticides. This is again a long debate, Again I am saying, I am approving that all pesticides are toxic, and people are looking for botanical pesticides, biopesticides, but they are not effective at all. For the last 20 years, the research is going on. In India, the most important thing is the improper usage of pesticides. We recommend that 2 milligram or 2 grams per acre can be used. But since most of the farmers are illiterate, they do not know, they do not understand the dosage and all those things. They think, same is with fertilizers. You recommend 1 gram per acre, thinking that if 1 gram can produce 10 kilogram, why if I put 2 grams, maybe it will increase to 20 kilograms.
Then doctor,
so they are using fertilizers in excess, which is again spoiling our soil. They are using pesticides in excessive quantities, while there is a comparative data. 40% of the farmers are not using pesticides at all. And there the crop per hectare is much less because they are infested by the pests.
This ban is supposed to be taking place not just here in Kerala, in India, but also there's supposed to be a worldwide ban as of next year. What do you think would be the impact?
What is going to happen is India has not ratified this decision. So India is the government of India is free to choose to poison its people or not, and it is up to the states to up to the stakeholders to come up and protect themselves, and that is the only scenario I see. And if the Supreme Court, where he's rightly said, the court has a view and government of India has a different view. And it is up to, we have to wait for the respected
Dr. Raza, just very quickly.
The impact will be enormous, particularly if I am in India, I am an Indian. So for India, the impact will be enormous because as on date, no insecticide as effective and as cheap is available unless an alternative is searched, which will be very costly. To develop a molecule, you need $1 billion and 12 years of time for any molecule to come into the market, and there is no surety that will be as effective, as useful as the existing molecule.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave the discussion there. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And that's all the time we have for this edition of 101 East. You can always follow the program through our website, podcast, Facebook and Twitter. From all the team here in Kerala, thanks for watching.